Councillor Mercer, you've got 30 seconds.
Right, so good morning everybody and welcome all councillors and members of the public to the latest meeting of the North Northamptonshire Executive and those who are watching live on YouTube. Members are reminded to keep your microphones muted and your laptops muted, and of course, as we all know now, if they go off, there's a fine for the chairman's charity, and so ensure that we keep those muted unless you want to pay. We're going to go straight into the agenda. Agenda item 1, apologies for absences.
Thank you very much, Chair. 2 apologies today. Deputy Leader, Councillor Helen Howell, and Guy Holloway, Assistant Chief Executive. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Guy. I was giving your apologies and I didn't look round the room. My apologies, Guy.
David makes you feel very welcome in these meetings, doesn't he? Okay, agenda item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of January 25. The minutes are held, as I say, on the 16th of January, and they're set out on page 5 and 26 of the agenda pack. Are there any comments in relation to their accuracy? No. Can I have a mover that I sign and someone to second, please? Councillor Brackenbury and Councillor Bundy. Thank you very much. Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Good, thank you. Okay, members' declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members? No, that's great. Okay, so we've got item 4, notifications to requests to address the meeting. There is various requests on here, but I will just bring you in as and when, rather than go through them all now. So item 5, the first part of the agenda for the business, is performance indicator reports 24-25 as of period 9. I would like to invite Councillor Bundy to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. The new performance management framework and 2024-25 KPI set were approved by Executive in May. KPI reporting within 24-25 splits indicators into 3 types: core KPIs, service KPIs and organisational health KPIs. All members are sent the monthly core KPIs, and this report is brought to Executive Committee on a quarterly basis. This report covers the core, service and organisational health KPIs for the month of December, quarter 3, period 9. 35 KPIs are recorded in the core monthly set and therefore feature in Appendix A. But to remind members, there are actually 44 RAG status reported because of the 3 highway defects are split into 4 each. A further 104 KPIs and 47 organisational health KPIs are reported on a quarterly basis and feature in Appendices B and C. In this period, of those KPIs with a target set and where the data is available, 43 indicators are on or exceeding target, 13 indicators are within tolerance of target, and 21 indicators are performing below target. For those KPIs where the polarity of direction of travel has been determined, performance has improved for 52 indicators and deteriorated for 21. 30 have changed by less than 5%, or if deteriorating, were still on target. Of KPIs, in particular in my area, council tax collection rates remain close to target. The percentage of calls answered out of total calls received in customer service continues to rise. 99.1% of invoices were paid within 30 days of receipt, and our commercial stock continues to perform well. And with that, Chair, I'm happy to propose the recommendations of paragraph 3.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bundy. Looking around the table, members, any comments in relation to this report? Councillor Brackenbury.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning, everybody. Yes, as always, these KPIs provide a really useful and welcome snapshot of the sort of nuts and bolts of what's going on in the council, so very much to be welcomed. At STP 15, 16 and 17, I welcome the obvious improvement in the deciding of major planning applications and non-major planning applications. And I particularly draw attention, Chair, to STP 41, which is a very useful tracking tool for the percentage of planning applications determined which was subject to an extension of time, which is, of course, something that the PAS were very interested in when they did their planning review over the last year or so. Again, it's a tracking review, and it reflects some good progress that is being made in reducing the backlog of planning applications. So all in all, very useful for the whole council, but very useful in my area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Chair. I just wish to refer to the health checks, which is AFL 20 and 21. They are down at the moment, but we have a plan to try to bring those up. GPs that were taking this up, some of them have exhausted the people that they can call because they've been so successful in calling all of the people to them that are eligible for these health checks. But we've also now engaged 31 out of 32 of the GPs that we are working with. So we're hoping to improve those targets in the future.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mercer. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the stats show that the homeless team are doing an excellent job. That although the target is below for stopping homeless people becoming homeless, the rehousing of the homeless people is showing way above target. It's also good to see on the stats that no families are living in B&B on temporary accommodation, and no temporary accommodation is outside of the North Ants. So it's and the rough sleepers rehousing is way above target as well.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowley. I think that's everyone that needed to speak on their items. So, Councillor Bunday has moved that report. Can I look for someone to second that? Councillor Brackenbury, thank you very much. And those recommendations are set out on page 28 of the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we move on to item 6, determination of admission arrangements for local authority maintain community and voluntary controlled schools in North Northamptonshire for the 2026 intakes. I'd like to invite leader of the local Labour group, Councillor Matt Keane, to address the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. This policy has remained unchanged since 2021 and a consultation has not been conducted, so this will be ratified without any modifications. While the guidance recommends reviewing this policy every 7 years, the current educational landscape presents significant challenges that warrant reconsideration. The global pandemic has profoundly altered the education sector and there's been an increase in homeschooling. Residents in rural areas have also raised concerns to me about the challenges that they face. We need to make sure that SEND students receive appropriate placements and support within mainstream schools, and that remains a critical issue. The growing number of SEND students pose a significant challenge, as schools may not have the necessary specialist resources to meet their needs. Our area has also experienced huge population growth, and the admissions framework may not adapt swiftly to changes in demand. This could result in overcrowding in certain areas and under-enrolment in others. I believe we've missed an opportunity here not to have a consultation, and local educators and parents have comments on the admission policy. So hopefully next year we can have this consultation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Keane. I'd now like to invite Councillor Edwards to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is the determination of admission arrangements for local authority. So this is an annual report that comes to Council every year to determine how many children are taken into each school. There are no changes to this report as from last year. The reason there was no consultation is because you can't consult if there are no changes. So it cannot go out to a consultation if the schools have said there are no changes to their PAN entry, which is what has happened this year. We are absolutely looking at school places within primary and secondary schools to allocate, because absolutely there is a huge growth across North Northants. We're looking at those to be able to do that. You will know that coming forward to members is a paper that is coming forward for increasing in the schools allocation, schools placements and new school builds as well. So that will form a separate part of this, but this is a separate paper to do that. It really is quite a basic paper in that there are no changes to it, but it really is worth a read, because in the paper it does, and lots of members inquire about how we do with appeals, how we do with people on waiting lists and things like that, and that's all within the paper. So it really is a positive paper within that. But rest assured, Councillor Keane, we are looking at school placements and children's allocations for the future. Thank you.
Are you going to introduce the report, or was that it?
Sorry, yeah, no, that basically was the report, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Edwards. I'll take you a move in that report.
I do move this report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. Members, have we got anything to say in relation to the report? Nope. Okay, so Councillor Edwards so brilliantly moved that report. Can I look for someone to second it, please? Councillor Howells, thank you so much. The recommendations are set out on page 61 of the agenda pack. They have been now moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. So we move on to item 7, North Northamptonshire Council Adult Social Care Strategy 24 to 29, The Lives We Live. And I'd like to invite Councillor Lynn Buckingham to join us.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. As with any strategy, I welcome the focus that is put on strategies, and I think that we still have a way to go for many of ours. The reason I wanted to speak on this particular one was the level of consultation. This was presented to the executive last March, and then it was going to go out, and that co-production and everything. 13 members of the public fed into this paper, and I think that there was a big there was something missed to get that level of consultation responses. Not that we don't really need, it's just beyond belief that we haven't captured many more voices that need to be captured to feed into this. Wino workshops, it's an area where there are a lot of people coming forward that could have been asked, could have been asked about the services that they want, need, whatever. So it's how do we build on that, to build on this strategy going forward, and I know that we'll probably be told about that. The other thing about strategies within here, within most of the strategies coming forward to you today, at 7.7.1, that there is a forward plan. But the forward plan doesn't always take into account the timing of when the strategies come before you, or how we look at it as scrutiny. And I think we need to rethink that a little bit some way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. I'd like to invite Councillor Mercer now to introduce the report.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Buckingham, for your comments. As you'll see, there were actually 40 respondents to the consultation, although unfortunately some people didn't complete all of the questions, which is why the number that you referred to. And of course, we're really disappointed about that. We did consult widely. The problem is, I think, with adult social care, particularly people only really sort of show an interest if it affects them, and you know they otherwise don't take much notice of it. But the other thing is that we had such extensive consultation and co-production with all of the partners, the staff, the people that are affected. We do feel that probably they had the chance to actually feed into the consultation in the first place. So they did have their say, but just not after the consultation went out. So, yeah, but we do bear that in mind. You mentioned also scrutiny and the timing. Obviously, the scrutiny can call in an item after it's published, and there's also pre-scrutiny as well. You know, as I was the chair of the Scrutiny Management Board for a while, I know it is sometimes a bit difficult to get that timing, but we do try to allow scrutiny to have an input. Chair, this, as Councillor Buckingham said, came to the Executive in March and asked us to go out to consultation, and that was the 5th of November to the 16th of December. The consultation responses are in Appendix B, and the ones we had are broadly supportive, and no changes are made as a result. I've said, you know, that it was a bit disappointing, the level. It's a 5-year strategy, and it's a really important milestone because it's the first North Northamptonshire adult social care strategy. And someone might say, well, option 1, why didn't you go for that? But that was not our strategy. That was a county-wide strategy previously. This strategy is shown at Appendix A, and the underlying vision is what the ICB have as enabling people to live their best life. That's the overriding thing, and it puts a person at the centre of the system with a single route of access, allocating people to community facilities if they don't need formal adult social care. The aim is to keep people independent in their own home as long as possible, and focusing on their strengths. They call it strengths-based working. It's a bit of terminology. And also to commission services to provide choice, quality, value for money, and that improves the outcomes for people. So it has gone through extensive also consultation really with other boards, the North Northampton Place Board, the Health and Wellbeing Board, the Active Communities EAP, the ICS Urgent Care Board, and the Northampton Safeguarding Board, and they all supported the direction of travel. So I think you can see, Councillor Buckingham, that other organisations have been involved. And the CQC will be at some point making an assurance visit, and they will look to see we have a clear strategy. So the recommendation is for the Executive to approve the strategy and to delegate to the Director in consultation with the Executive member to develop and implement a delivery plan to bring it to life. And I would like to propose that, which is outlined in 3.1 for the reasons in 3.2.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mercer. Members, have you got anything to say in relation to this paper before us? Councillor Macaulay-Nicholl.
Sorry, thanks, Chair. Look, as a 5-year plan, this report provides a very clear strategy for how we, as a council, can actually work with these public bodies in delivering on our key adult social care commitments. But not only that, but actually carrying out our statutory duties and also collecting the views from industry stakeholders, professionals and staff. And Jill, being a member of the Health and Wellbeing Board as well, I absolutely welcome the integration of this report and I absolutely thank yourself and the officers for your input. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nicholl. Any other comments in relation to the paper? No? Okay, so that report has been moved, and the recommendations are set out on page 110 of the agenda pack. Can I have someone to second that, please? Councillor Nicholl, thank you very much. So can we now have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 8, Climate Change Strategy 25 to 2030, and I invite Councillor Lynn Buckingham to address the meeting.
Thank you very much. Again, I welcome any strategy coming forward, and obviously acknowledge all the work that's gone in. In terms of this particular strategy, again, I don't see the people, the residents, within this strategy, and I know it's a working strategy for the council, but there needs to be more involvement from residents. So in terms of homes and the built environment, it talks about retrofitting. However, you know, it doesn't go far enough in terms of, it doesn't link in with the HECA report, and how we will get more homes energy efficiency. It talks about energy, our solar and wind, our renewables. And again, it's thinking about how we use our land uses and some of those, because some of the solar farms coming up just seem to be in the wrong place. You know, do we have a stance on where these wind and solar farms are going to go in the future, and how we can get people on board on that? It talks about transport, but we are, as a nature of Northamptonshire, a transient county, because we are built on logistics. So it's, you know, how do we move things around but save you know, on our transport, and some of the things I don't see the correlation there. The other thing was the green skills, and I've seen very little about the green skills coming forward. One of the town's funds things was about bringing those green skills, finding out what our needs are and putting those in place. And again, I don't see that. So, yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. I'd like to invite Mr. Chris Ashton to address the meeting. Mr. Ashton, the seat's just over there, and you have a maximum of 3 minutes to address the meeting.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me speak on this important strategy, and thank you for your work on it already. There are some questions on the back of this, however. There is fairly conspicuous and notable absentee from the key focuses. While there are mentions of water in the other sections, it should be a priority. There is a concerning level of pollution throughout the Corby waterway. It is important that this is investigated and that water pollution is factored into any plan to combat climate change. According to Top of the Poops, Corby in East Northamptonshire was polluted by sewage 828 times in 2023, lasting 6,680 hours. This only covers disclosed, controlled discharges. There is no telling what else has been dumped in our waterways. It's important to monitor, clear and prevent our waterways being polluted in the future. Will Councillor Harrison consider adding water pollution to the strategy? The other large emission from the strategy is incinerators. There are currently 2 incinerators with planning permission in the Corby Rural Ward. The strategy, while it mentions waste, does not mention waste buildings. With the announcement in December from DEFRA that any new incinerators will be required to meet stricter new standards, and the fact that the incinerator would affect the environment in the way of air quality, transport and waste, will Councillor Harrison be calling for a review of these projects?
Thank you very much, Mr Ashton. I'd like to invite Councillor Harrison to introduce her paper now, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm absolutely delighted to be bringing this climate change strategy to the exec for their approval. And I'd like to put on record my thanks to Councillor Harriet Pendland, who has clearly been the driving force behind this strategy, and the officers and Electric Places who have worked so hard to put it together. I can't take a huge amount of credit as I've only just stepped into this role, but I'm very proud that we are going to be presenting this strategy for 2025 to 2030. And I thank both Councillor Buckingham and Chris Ashton for their comments. This is a really important strategy and is going to guide the way we work towards a net zero future. I think you both raised some really good issues, and there's a huge amount that could be in our climate change strategy. And absolutely nothing is off the table. This is a strategy that encompasses the most important areas of carbon emissions across Northamptonshire, and will encompass all of the things that you've talked about. Planning is a hugely important part of this, in terms of are we putting things like wind turbines and solar panels in the right places. One of the things you'll see in this strategy is it very much comes through that brownfield sites or low grade fields should be used, as opposed to those that are used for high yield food production. But ultimately what happens, as I'm sure you know, is a company will come forward with a proposal and it'll be looked at by planning officers, and there are very strict legal rules about what will get, what you can turn down and what you can't. So we're a little bit at the mercy of what's actually proposed and what comes forward. But we do have to, I think, use our planning policy. We've got the local plan coming forward at the moment. We need to use that to set down some parameters and some rules about what we think is acceptable in Northamptonshire and what's not. Water pollution is obviously a huge issue for us, and we need to work very closely with our partners in terms of monitoring and mitigating those. Again, planning is going to be hugely important there. The current government wants us to build more and more and more houses. That's putting more and more pressure on our infrastructure. And again, we need to try to push back on some of that and make sure that what is proposed works, that the infrastructure can come along with that. If we don't have the infrastructure, I'm afraid we will have water pollution, because we're going to get overflows at times of storm. So we've got to try to be as strong as we can in terms of making sure that all those things are taken into consideration. But let's be really honest here. There's huge pressure on us to build more all the time, and that is having a huge impact on the environment here in Northamptonshire. So in terms of the climate change strategy, as you know, we declared a climate and environment emergency back in July 2021. And alongside that, we had a set of recommendations that we adopted, which included the development of a climate change strategy, which is what I'm presenting today, and an action plan. And just to Councillor Buckingham's point about consultation, I actually think we had a pretty successful consultation. We had 358 respondents, which for consultations is not bad. And of those, I was just looking, the vast majority were residents. as opposed to council employees or councillors or whatever. And it was strongly promoted. And I think similarly to Councillor Mercer's comments on the consultation that she was just talking about, of course, we involved people in the development of this climate change strategy in the first place. So there was a huge amount of what I suppose you might call co-production went into this. So I think, it's been a lot of hard work. Our officers have worked really closely with Electric Places to bring this together, working with schools, industry, businesses, colleges across our area. And what's been produced, I think, is a really, really nice strategy. I think it's easy to read. I think it's well thought out. I think that people can pick this up, members of the public, as well as businesses in our area, as well as councillors, as well as, parish councillors. Anyone can pick this strategy up and understand what it's trying to do. It starts by setting out the national and local context. It very much sets out what the challenges are for us here in North Northamptonshire in terms of how climate change is likely to affect us over the coming years and decades. It explains very clearly how we went about producing this climate change strategy, and then goes on to outline the key areas of focus, which are homes and the built environment, which I think encompasses most of the issues that both of you raised, energy, transport, nature, food and farming, the green economy and waste. And each of those sections clearly sets out where we stand right now and what the challenges are for the future. And I'm sure that there'll be some things that are, missing that we can add as time goes by. This is not a finite document. It then talks about what we as a council pledge to do, and I think that's really important. This isn't just a wish list of a whole load of things that we hope will maybe materialise in the future. We are making commitments as to what we are going to do as a council. We then talk about what any member of the public picking up this document might want to do. What actions can we individually take? And then finally, what the businesses and our North Northamptonshire community will be able to contribute to this. So I think it's set out really nicely. I think it's nice and readable. It's very understandable. And I guess the question is, well, what next? This has been to EAP twice. It's been to scrutiny a couple of weeks ago. And the consultation produced a lot of feedback. All of that feedback has been reflected into the strategy, and key changes were made along the way, showing that this wasn't, an exercise and sitting there writing something, then ignoring what everybody had to say. And if you have a look at the report today, you'll see in section 7, we actually outline some of the changes that we made to the document as a result of consultation. One of the key things that came from the scrutiny committee, there were two really big things. One was communication. How are we going to communicate this? Particularly their concerns were around waste, so recycling, and how we're going to continue to improve that. We have committed that we're already in development of a sort of a one-stop shop hub that we're developing, which will be a sort of a key resource for all of our residents to use. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the development of that. It's well on its way. But the other thing was pace. So, we are now committing to develop an action plan, and we've talked about developing that over the next year. And we were very much challenged on, well, why can't you get that action plan together in a month and get on with it? This is a climate emergency. And the really important point around that was that this is not our North Northamptonshire. This is not our council plan. It's a North Northamptonshire plan. We already have our carbon management plan, which is our plan, the council's plan. This is now a plan for the whole of North Northamptonshire. So we need to develop this action plan with our partners who are going to develop it, who are going to deliver, because we can't deliver this. This is something we have to deliver with others. And so it will take some time. we see this as being something that will be a key delivery through the Big 50, where we already have huge engagement from our partners across North Northamptonshire, and developing some work streams to really move this on. And we're also committed to putting some resource behind that to make sure that this happens. So I think we have a strategy. We know we've got to develop that action plan. We want to develop it as fast as we can. If we can develop that plan faster than over a period of a year, we'll do it. But it needs to be done with our partners, because we have to have that buy-in. Nothing will happen unless other people want to go on this journey with us. So I'm really pleased to present this, really happy to take questions, and thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harrison. And I'd like to echo your thanks to Councillor Pentland for the amount of hard work that she's put in it, and that's very evident from this report and the detail in the report. And, I think it's an excellent paper that we've brought forward here. The strategy is brilliant, but it is a working strategy, and it can be improved, but this is what a great start to it. And if you all recall, we put £1 million into a funding pot at the beginning of this council, and the amount of inward investment that £1 million has brought in, again, has been quite substantial as well, which I know your predecessor, Councillor Pentland, championed, not just wasting that money, but getting a real big bang for the buck, as they say, and getting programmes in that bring in more money from that original pot of money, which is admirable that she managed to do that. I'm just going to look for members if they would like to make any comments in relation to this report. Councillor Brackenbury.
Thank you, Chair. And it would be rude not to join you, Chair, and you, Councillor Harrison, in thanking Councillor Pentland and the team for all the really hard work that was put in framing this really quite comprehensive but yet readable strategy. I welcome also the comments from Mr. Ashton, and Councillor Buckingham, because having a strategy that lives on a bookshelf isn't really good enough. That's not what we're trying to do. And the actual breadth of this document is really interesting. It's going to cause a lot of work in my area in place shaping and planning policy, because such, as Councillor Harrison rightly observes, we in North Northamptonshire are being asked to take substantial growth in terms of housing and employment sites, and of course planning those carefully and with a view to the environment is absolutely crucial. We've seen, as Councillor Buckingham observed, we've seen a number of applications for solar farms. We are conscious of a large strategic solar farm proposal in the west of North Northamptonshire, which is a project of national infrastructure. So again, of course, one can see the perceived benefits of renewable energy, but of course it comes at a cost to the environment and to the local amenity. So it's something which is crucial to get balance in this whole debate. We are trying to push more and more into a pot called North Northamptonshire, and how are we going to do that and manage the climate and the environment while taking this? This isn't just a question for us here in North Northamptonshire. This is a national and indeed a global question. So I absolutely welcome the thought and the cooperation and consultation that's gone on. 350 responses to a public consultation is good, and it's not just the usual suspects. It's not just the various stakeholders and people who are actually invested in it. It was a wide selection of residents. So, Chair, I hugely welcome the report. I welcome the enormous amount of work that's gone into it. Thanks to you, Councillor Harrison, because you've picked this up and run with it. And of course, thanks to Councillor Pentland, who's was running with it for some years before. So, excellent report and very much to be welcomed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Leader. I too would like to say it's a fantastic policy, and I think that a lot of work has gone into it, and what I really like about it is it's a strategy for everybody. It's not just a council strategy, it's working with everybody within our communities, and Councillor Harrison, you mentioned about working with schools and working with colleges. Absolutely, education is the key within this, and we have to start them young, getting them to understand about the environment, about them, what they can do, what they can change. There's a bit in it about what we can all do in our own houses, you know, what we can do to help help support this, and it really is an easier to read strategy as well compared to some other strategies I've seen up and down the country. It's quite easy to read. It's, you know, it's not something that you have to delve right deep into. There are things you can do now, there are things you can do later, and the targets are there. It's a fantastic strategy, and I look forward to working with it on it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Edwards. Councillor Harrison, we're just going to come back to you just to sum up, and if you want to move that report again, and I'll find you a seconder.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your support on this, and I hope both Councillor Buckingham and Chris Ashton and others will continue to, be involved in this as we move forwards. I'm sure that there'll be plenty of opportunity to get involved as members of our community as we deliver over the next 5 years and beyond. Thank you, Councillor Edwards, for your comments on the sort of accessibility of this report, because I think it's really important that we're communicating well with our residents, and we're not putting out documents that are so dense nobody can bear to read them. So yeah, I was very pleased with that too, so with that, I'm very, very happy to propose that we adopt this strategy, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harrison. Now I'm going to look for someone to second. Councillor Edwards, thank you very much. So the recommendations are set out on page 160 of the agenda pack. They have now been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you so much. So we now move on to item 9, High Street Rental Auctions Early Adopters. And I would like to invite Councillor Keane to address the meeting.
Thank you. Firstly, I welcome this initiative. Our high streets are something to be proud of. Historically, they've been thriving, but now face challenges and online competition. When growing up, my own granddad owned a music shop here in Corby, so I was raised on a busy high street. I would like to know how we will go about targeting specific high streets. I believe Kettering has faced significant challenges recently. Wellingborough has had several high-profile closures, and additionally, Corby and Rushden have got long-term vacant units. I would also like to know how the council plans to engage with the landlords, how it will measure success and attract businesses facing high rents. I recall when Corby went its town centre regeneration, it was something that worked well and to this day has attracted shoppers from near and far. We must do everything we can to ensure our high streets are modern, fit for purpose and future-proof. They provide local jobs, and I am pleased that the government is working to support this issue. I support North Northamptonshire leading by example and applying to be an early adopter, but I'd just like to also know if some of our high street, some of our shopping precincts in our estates would be included in this policy also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Keane. I'm going to go to Councillor Brackenbury now to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Keane, for your comments on that. I'll touch on them as I introduce the report. Yes, so we, as part of the government's or previous government's Levelling and Regeneration Act, they introduced this concept of high street rental auctions. So what it basically means is that a property which has been vacant for a lengthy period of time, a commercial property, can be the local authority can compel the landlord to put properties up for auction for a lease so that that property is brought back into commercial use. Obviously, that is not a power that would be used commonly, because there are quite strict criteria as to how and when that power might be used. You will see at 4.3, then there are some quite specific preliminary actions that a local authority would have to undertake before beginning the process. And of course, also, this is not a blanket power for all commercial properties in Northamptonshire or North Northamptonshire. This would be in a specific and designated area where there is a lot of vacant properties which might be brought back into commercial use. Of course, the other point is that it is a last resort. We don't feel that we should be interfering in the normal commercial world where a landlord can rent their properties out commercially. It's not something that a local authority should be doing to compel landlords to do it, but we also recognise that there are times where a suitable commercial property is vacant, and it may be useful to have this in the toolkit to encourage a landlord to move on and actually rent out the property and bring it back into use. So you will see at 4.4, Chair, there are some guidance as to when to use when an auction might be brought into being. 4.9 also explains that the property that would be eligible for a high street rental auction would have been unoccupied continuously for 12 months within a 24-month period. So we're not, and the other point is, of course, that such a property would have to be commercially viable to be brought back into use. So it's got to be of a certain standard. So, I mean, I think we can all visualize various properties in some of our high streets, which at this stage are absolutely not fit to be brought into commercial use. So this isn't going to be a panacea, but it is a very useful initiative. It gives us the ability to engage with landlords and with potential tenants to bring properties back into use. So, as I say, part of the toolkit. I think it will be very interesting to see how this rolls out, because, of course, we will have to designate an area, and we will then have to monitor it closely to see how successful it's being, with a view to perhaps expanding the area or areas that we're engaging in this. So, Chair, you will see the recommendations at section 3, which is to endorse the decision which you kindly took, Chair, under Regulation 11, to approve that the Council signs up to this High Street Rental Auctions initiative, and to note that the further report we brought back to the Executive detailing the next steps. So I move that recommendation for the reasons set out in 3.2.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Members, have we got anything to say in relation to this paper in front of us today? No. There we go. So the recommendation has been put forward by Councillor Brackenbury. A hand has been moved. Can I look for someone to second that paper, please? Councillor Macaulay-Nicholl, thank you very much. Those recommendations are on page 258 and 259 of the agenda pack. They've now been moved and seconded. Could I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 10, North Northamptonshire Housing Strategy 2025 to 2030. I'd like to invite Councillor Keane to enter the meeting.
Thank you. I'd firstly like to thank the housing team who have put a lot of effort into this strategy. Housing is a pressing concern not only for our residents but also for young people. I'm pleased to witness the new government's recognition of the issue and commitment to building social housing. In contrast, our council has not prioritised this matter, resulting in only the previously planned socially rent developments planned by Corby Borough. Therefore, I am really encouraged by this strategy. I'm hopeful that it can alleviate some of the pressures on temporary accommodation and rough sleeping and optimise our housing stock. I'm also encouraged by government announcements that will allow councils to retain 100% of the proceeds from the right to buy sales. This has already been beneficial for NNC, who have invested these funds into expanding our housing stock. I'm pleased the community engagement priorities in this strategy. I think it's really important that the community are engaged. If my casework is anything by any measures, then our residents have really strong opinions on housing, so I really welcome this paper. However, I believe that NNC should take a more ambitious approach and consider establishing things like private letting companies, which have successfully happened in Brent. We should do more to engage with the development sector and maximise the benefits of Section 106 agreements to help us unlock additional housing units. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Keane. I'd like to invite Councillor Buckingham to address the meeting.
Thank you again. And again, I welcome this and I know the work that's gone in to developing the strategy. And overall, I really do welcome it. There are some things that I've noticed though. So it gives a lot of data, but some of that data is sort of skewed a little bit. So, for example, our waiting lists aren't just homeless people or people that have presented homeless. A lot of our people on our waiting lists are waiting to either go up on the ladder because they've got children or they want to downsize. People waiting for aids and adaptations. And I noticed that in the priority, you've got changing needs, and I think there needs to be a little bit more work done around a lot of those changing needs, because some of our casework coming in is around how do you, once you're within a council property, how do you go up if your needs change? And it is so difficult. So it's one of those things that I think needs to be reflected within the strategy itself. The other thing that I've noticed in priority 2 is you're putting a lot of store on bringing energy efficiency up within the private sector, which there are grants for the private sector to do that, but there isn't for social housing. And I think it's one of the areas that I've tried to push over the last couple of years, is that our own stock is falling down on a lot of the energy performance measures that should be in place. And I will come to that later on within this document. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckingham. So I'd like to invite Councillor Rowley now to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to quickly make a few comments on what's been said so far. It's not just the Corby area where we've got historic building going on, as Kettering as well. And we are already speaking to developers on 106 money. We've been doing that for quite a while now. So we are talking to developers and buying stock within 106 or off books. So presenting the report, this is the long-awaited housing strategy. It's not just the normal strategy from the past of housing department bubble creating a strategy. This has gone out across the whole of North Northants departments and to our partners. So we've had forums where interdepartments have put their ideas forward and they've been incorporated. We've also had partners come in on a forum with NHS, care leavers, developers, social housing, to all feed into this strategy so that we've tried to encompass as much as we can for the needs. And as has been mentioned, it's mainly got 4 streams of priorities: building new homes across all tenures where people are proud to live, improve the quality of the existing housing stock to provide decent, energy efficient and safe homes, preventing homelessness to ensure everyone has access to decent, safe and secure homes, and supporting people to live healthy and independent lives in homes suited to their needs. So the report is asking permission from the exec to take this to the consultation phase so that members of the public, developers, housing associations and our partners can all have their say in what's in the strategy so we can move it forward. It's also, although not in the papers, since the papers have been written, we've got a scrutiny slot on the 25th of February for this to be reviewed by scrutiny. So I present this as proposal as 3.1 for the reasons in 3.2.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowley. It's an excellent strategy coming forward, and your team and yourself should be very proud of what you have worked on to get this over the line. I'm just looking around the room for members that wanted to speak. Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Chair. There's obviously quite a big correlation with my area, and so that's what I want to speak to. So we are trying to keep people living in their own homes, so it's vital that the quality of homes and the availability of homes is essential there. And also health, because if you're not in a good housing, really affects your health, and there's in fact affecting the cost of treating those affected by poor housing is 1.4 billion a year. That's a huge amount, and the main cost of that is excess cold. So I do worry about the housing of the people living in inadequate housing. So anything we can do to improve that housing and to look after people, not just in the cold, but in the heat as well, when we have excess heat. So I do welcome this strategy and applaud the amount of work that's gone into it.
Thank you, Councillor Mercer. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you. Yeah, no, absolutely, Councillor Mercer. I completely welcome that remarks and what you said about the wider health benefits that something like this will have. But I also welcome this strategy from my perspective for the reason it sets out a very clear vision for delivering the homes our communities absolutely need. And I also welcome the focus we're putting on in emphasising the quality and sustainability of these new developments. But overall, a key part of making this a success is the strong infrastructure we have in place. This includes methods such as our public transport, active travel routes, which all come together to support our local needs. So for that, Chair, I fully support this strategy, and I believe that it will deliver in a really strong way that works for now and for residents in the future.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nicol. Just go back to Councillor Rowley. Did you just want to sum up, and I'll find you a seconder for your report?
Very welcome of the comments that have been made, and echo my thanks and to the Yvonne and the housing team for producing this document. It's a very comprehensive document, so present it.
Thank you, Councillor Rowley. Okay. Would someone like to second that report? Councillor Harrison, thank you very much. So that has been moved and seconded, and the recommendations are set out on page 284 of your agenda packs. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
That's great. Thank you very much. So with that, I'm going to call a quick 10-minute break, and we'll be back in 10 minutes sharp. Thank you. Right, good morning everybody. So we're going to move on now to item 11, and thank you for coming back on time. Update and review of minerals and waste planning policies and proposals. I'd like to invite Councillor Brackenbury to introduce the report, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So, in line with the local development scheme, we have to have a number of planning policies which are adopted and which serve the local area. Of course, notably, it is the local plan, which currently is for joint core strategy, supported by the Part 2 plans for the various former district and borough councils. But we also have a duty to have a minerals and waste local plan. And as the current minerals and waste local plan was adopted in 2017, we now have to do the work to proceed with a new minerals and waste local plan to pursue that until it is duly adopted. As with all local plans, these are highly complex documents. They take a great deal of evidence to support any sites that are identified within a local plan area. And they are, of course, individually and extensively consulted upon, both with residents in the plan area and of course, a number of statutory stakeholders, as well as the actual trade interests in both minerals and waste. So it is a pretty wide piece of work which will be going on for some considerable time, and I do through this meeting I do welcome any comments and any evidence that residents or individuals do have up and down Northamptonshire. The question that is of some interest in this meeting is whether or not to pursue one minerals and waste local plan for all of Northamptonshire, which reflects the current adopted document, or whether to have one minerals and waste local plan for the two local planning authorities in Northamptonshire, the North and the West. There has been some actual discussion on this particular point as to whether having two plans would in some way disadvantage Northamptonshire by either having to meet a quota for all of Northamptonshire, which might exceed Northamptonshire's requirement, or whether there would be any form of disadvantage in having two plans in terms of the actual amount of minerals that are being extracted. I've done some checking up on this with officers and with other colleagues, and it does not. There is no chance that a plan which would seek to control where extracted mineral goes to would in fact get through the examination process. There will be, as with all local plans, there will be a call for sites, and any site that comes forward will have to go through the planning process, just like any other planning application would do, and would have to be viable. It is in fact worth pointing out that in terms of geology, there are more mineral extraction potential opportunities in North Northamptonshire than West Northamptonshire. You only have to look at a map of the River Nene catchment area to see that as the river flows from where it rises down towards the sea, it gets bigger. So there are more opportunities for sand and gravel extraction, as indeed we've seen with all the various lakes that have sprung up down the course of the River Nene over the last sort of 20, 30 years. Rushton Lakes being a fairly good example, and I don't know what's happened there. But so in terms of the recommendation suggests that we go with what we currently do and have one plan for all of Northamptonshire. That reflects the fact that we also have one minerals and waste team which covers both areas. And Chair, you will of course also see at 4.13 to 4.15 there is an explanation that it would save both councils a considerable amount of money in the costs for the planning inspector and the examination, and the figures, or the indicative figures, Chair, are given at 4.14 and 4.15. So it is suggested that we go to one plan for all of Northamptonshire. It is emphasised that the evidence base for any site will be the same across the entire county. Anything that comes forward still has to meet all the tests that it will have to meet in terms of the individual site, and the evidence base to which will formulate the actual plan will of course also be the same. It will also be rigorously examined by the inspector, and the plan will not be adopted or not be found sound by the inspector if the evidence is not satisfactory. So with that, Chair, I move for recommendation at 3.1 that the Minerals and Waste Local Plan is progressed to adoption and prepared to cover the county of Northamptonshire for the reasons set out at 3.2.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Members, do we have anything to add to that, or anything we want to cover off? No, so that has been moved by Councillor Brackenbury. Can I have someone look to second that, please? Councillor Rowley, thank you very much. Those recommendations are on page 368 of the agenda pattern. They've now been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. So we now move on to item agenda 12, government funding to support economic growth in 25-26. I'd like to invite Councillor Keane to address the meeting, please.
Thank you. Once again, I welcome this report. I'm actually an industry insider here, so previously I served as a job coach, assisting long-term and employed individuals in securing future employment. It was a highly rewarding experience, and a significant progress was achieved. However, a substantial proportion of the challenges faced by people are rooted in the local job market. I believe that we can enhance our efforts by collaborating closely with local employers to facilitate the employment of more individuals. So I'd like to ask what we're doing as a council to engage with local employers. What initiatives and evaluation methods will be used in the council to monitor its caseloads? Having gained experience in the industry, I've advocated for the involvement of local government in supporting individuals seeking employment. Numerous barriers are apparent to people, and those are barriers that local government can address. So it makes a logistical role for us to be involved to champion this cause. Nevertheless, I've also observed instances of wasted resource. Therefore, I'd appreciate information on the positive measures that the scheme the council can implement to help assist individuals in returning to work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Keane. So we now move on to Councillor Brackenbury to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. You'll be pleased to hear it's my last paper. Yes, well, thank you, Councillor Keane, for your welcome comments, because actually we are very much singing from the same hymn sheet on this. We absolutely do want to engage with local employers to drive up the opportunities that are faced by people who may face challenges or barriers in getting into employment. So absolutely agree with that. And the economic growth team are extremely proactive in their outreach work to local employers for, general economic growth, but also for those areas. And I can quote some very good employers who are really proactive about employing people who may have a less than conventional CV, or may have disability or other challenges or barriers to employment. So I'm more than happy to take this up with you offline, Councillor Keane. Anything that we can do to help, absolutely. So the report, Chair, covers 2 funding programmes. I think many of you will be familiar with the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which has been running since 2022-23 financial year. In some ways, it was set up to replace some grant funding that was formerly received from the European Union when we were members of it. And I know that we have, over the years, received considerable amounts of funding which has been put to very, very good use for grant recipients up and down North Northamptonshire. And the figures of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund allocations, you will see, Chair, at 4.2. It's very good to confirm that in the autumn 2024 budget statement, the government has announced a 1-year continuation of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund programme. And it has been confirmed that North Northamptonshire will receive funds of a total of 1,581,860, split between revenue and capital as explained in Table 2 at 4.3. You will also, Chair, see some, at Table 3, some projected allocations within the split of how that funding will be invested. So local communities, business, people and skills, and a small management fee to cover the costs of